Welcome back to Ronnie's Renewal Reviews. Today I'm talking about a new movie called The Drama, directed by Christopher Borgli, starring Robert Pattinson and Zendaya. It follows Charlie and Emma, a recently engaged couple preparing for a wedding, before everything is blown up by the reveal of a super scary special secret. I'm going to be spoiling this movie throughout the review, so don't listen to this if you haven't seen it. Personally, I went in without seeing a single trailer, and I still haven't seen a single trailer for The Drama. I only found out that the secret was at the center of the marketing the day I watched it from Friends Gossip. I love going into movies without knowing anything. It feels so refreshing and untainted, and this movie was no exception. This felt so refreshing, and it tackled some things in ways that felt new and unfamiliar to me. I loved The Drama, and with that, let's get into why.
There's some drama.
I was drunk.
That's a huge red flag.
It was just an accident. Can you just stop gossiping?
To the happy, carefree couple.
The Drama. Rated R.
I usually try to lay down my thoughts on the basic things before getting into themes and stuff, but I honestly just have to dive right in with this one because everything I could say branches out from the same places. The super special secret is that Emma almost shot up her school as a teen.
What?
No, alright.
I know that sounds bad.
Everything in this movie sprouts out from the reveal of this secret. How can you view this person the same? Can they be redeemed? How did they get the idea in the first place? All these questions flood, but before we try to answer them, I'll really explain the scene and the overarching theme surrounding it. To me, this movie was largely about empathy, isolation, and repression. They're not trying to excuse any actions, just analyzing how they came to be, and how specifically American city life can have this crushing effect. It's about a lack of community, and how we don't really know each other, or how at least the characters in this story don't really know each other, as a product of this society. The danger of living your whole life in your own bubble, and how it'll eventually pop. Back to this vital scene. Essentially, Charlie, Emma, and their two married friends get super drunk, and conversation leads one way to another before they all start oversharing over a little game where they have to admit the worst thing they've ever done. Mike admits to using his girlfriend as a human shield against a rabid dog, and Rachel admits to pushing who she calls a slower kid into a closet deep in the forest. I'll get to the other admissions, but the morals at the center of these stories boil down to intention, instinct, and apathy. They all admit to these horrible things they've done, and Rachel does get quite a bit of pushback, but her and Mike both hide behind the fact that they did it out of instinct and fear, and you could maybe understand that with Mike, but for Rachel it clearly would take intention and carelessness to let that go on, instead of instinct. Charlie reveals that he cyberbullied a kid in high school. Mike and Rachel point out that his brain wasn't even fully developed, but they quickly drop that reasoning when they hear Emma's admission. Emma's story clearly would take the most intention and apathy, but she's also the only one there who never went through with the action. The movie further fleshes out her backstory, and the whole story surrounds the causes that led to this plan, told in flashbacks, and then Charlie's reckoning with it, told in modern time. The movie doesn't excuse Emma, like I said, but it does make an incredible case for why we need to take the time to understand her, and understand what environmental factors contributed to it. This is what I mean when I say American city life is a big point of commentary in this movie, because we're shown these issues of societal apathy and distance, and we're also subtly shown how the design of this society has led to that isolation and coldness. This is why Charlie is such a good protagonist, because being the lone British man, he's kind of the odd one out, and he clearly has been affected by his surroundings in ways that he doesn't understand and can't deal with, whereas the other characters are essentially used to it. Charlie has a scene confronting Mike and Rachel where he talks about how many almost school shooters must be living out in society, and it's just this incredible scene jumping from random person to random person with these compellingly shot facial expressions. That's one way this movie portrays the societal issue, is through the focus on random strangers and their cold stares and lack of conversation. Another way they subtly influence you is these constant interruptions. In one way, this movie often weaves through conversations through the editing, which evokes the scatter and thought process, but there's also several literal interruptions. Almost every time that these characters have a serious conversation, it gets interrupted by just life. Many of these times it feels like more insight could easily pour out if it wasn't for the crushing busyness of these people's lives, blocking them from breaking down the proper barriers to get to know each other. So that's one way this movie reckons with Emma's stories, and with every other situation in this movie is, in Chainsaw Man terms, the city mouse life. Anyways, another branch that I touched on earlier is how this realization affects Charlie's mind, and this is where the editing really shines. As the movie goes on, we see glimpses of Emma's childhood, so we overall learn more about her, But despite the fact that we don't see any of Charlie's life before meeting Emma, his reaction to her secret and how it affects him and how it affects the movie is why it was a great choice to make him the protagonist. We get shown his psyche through small visual moments of storytelling and genius editing. This movie made a bold choice to show imaginary shots of Charlie with childhood Emma going on dates, and it is a bit jarring to see, but it's really Charlie reframing and recontextualizing Emma as a person. Because it weighs on him so harshly, he's forced to create a disconnection between the Emma he thought he knew and the one capable of planning a school shooting. We get a glimpse into what I believe is Charlie's dream, where we see a wedding shot up with bodies strewn about and guests running away. Stuff like this reminded me a lot of techniques used in Nickel Boys, with how the surreal elements of this movie are used to paint a picture of Charlie's scattered thoughts and Emma's scattered memories. We also see through Charlie's actions how he's affected. He throws out a mug because it says "coffee or I'll shoot" on it. He gets disturbed by a magazine left on his desk featuring women posing with guns, and he starts to imagine her in the photo shoots. There's a moment where he rereads his wedding speech and starts deleting sentences about how empathetic she is, and he eventually just deletes the whole thing. And it's a smart way to reuse the opening scenes where he's writing the speech, and it's a smart way to show how his view of Emma is shifting. He struggles to perform certain actions with Emma, because as it becomes more obvious, the reveal and the reshaping of this woman he loves sort of breaks him down mentally. He cries out to the world in many ways, and it never works. He frantically pleads with Rachel's disabled cousin that she would love Emma. Near the end of the movie, he confides in his coworker and tries to explain his situation without revealing his cards, and when she says she would call the cops if she found out her boyfriend almost did a school shooting, he lashes out. She finds him crying, and then he kisses her and almost has sex with her. I understood this at first as just an act of rebellion and a bit of a breakdown, but after the second watch, it's clear that he did it subconsciously to overshadow or absolve Emma's secret with the worst thing he could think of, which is to cheat on her. It's like in the flashback episode of The Bear when Mike throws the fork to overshadow Natalie's slip-up with their mom. Charlie just can't live with himself if he doesn't find a way to excuse this awful truth, and if he doesn't find a solution all by himself. He fails to find a way to fit into a broken society that he doesn't understand and can't cope with. And that's sort of the emotional center of his character arc, and what I found probably the most interesting part of this movie. Moving on to Emma is where another huge theme comes into play, which is repression. Repression is at the center of Emma's character, and it affects her in every part of her life. This is where the acting is on full display, because Zendaya's emotions were so visceral in this movie. Her body language and entire performance let us know just how uncomfortable and trapped she felt when having to reckon with her past. We see through flashbacks why she almost did what she almost did, and you would expect it to be horrible bullying and ostracization, but it's really just small, mean comments and the internet. Her character is defined by her struggle with empathy, and how she doesn't find comfort or community with anybody except for Charlie. She explains that Charlie was her first boyfriend and first crush, and she met him at 28, which really shows off how alone she has felt all her life. So you can really understand why she never told anyone and planned on not telling anyone, because she's just trapped in her own bubble, being slowly crushed by it. She also clearly was influenced by the internet commodity of school shootings, and the over-showcasing of these violent teenagers on the internet. She is obviously a victim of propaganda, and only a part of a larger societal issue that isn't properly dealt with as a result of her chronic loneliness and isolation. Even in modern times, she tries her hardest to push it further down and ignore it, and her need to further repress these problems she hasn't faced with, and Charlie's need to confront them and try to fix the impossible, is what creates the perfect conflict of the drama. There's also Mike and Rachel, the other couple, and they reflect many of these themes as well. Rachel is the closest this movie has to a villain, and she is a representation of everything that makes Emma's situation hard to deal with. Her fake empathy and narcissism is what forms the biggest fights in this movie, with Rachel showing no understanding of teenage Emma during the initial telling secrets scene. She refuses to engage with any of the larger issues at play, and acts as the perfect cog in the machine of the society. She also plays perfectly into this idea of not knowing people. During the scene where Charlie meets with her to talk about Emma, she says that Mike grew up with guns around the house and is now scared of guns, and Mike is taken aback by this and denies it, and it really shows off how we make up our own versions of people in our heads, and how people use other people and their trauma to their moral advantage. She does the same thing with her cousin when she tells Emma that her cousin is disabled in a wheelchair as a result of a school shooting. She doesn't actually care to understand people, she only uses people for her own societal gain. Charlie does a similar thing in the meeting with Rachel, where he says that Emma experienced a traumatic incident, witnessing her best friend dying in a car crash, when really it was just her neighbor she didn't know too well, and she never even saw the event. Mike is the least developed character, but he's mainly a peacekeeper and a bit of a yes man. He pushes back when he needs to, but all of his actions are him trying to simply keep the show going, and he never truly makes an attempt to have a real conversation. His need to keep the peace and Rachel's need to rock the boat is at the center of their conflict. And there we have it, all 4 leads of the drama and how brilliantly they are written. Now that I've talked about this movie's general themes, I want to get into some of the smaller details and aspects that I haven't had a chance to talk about yet. For one, this movie is extremely funny at times. There's a scene where Charlie and Emma are meeting the wedding photographer, and she goes on and on about shooting her family, and it's played in the most dramatically funny way possible, with camera flashes going off in the background. There's a scene where we see Emma as a teen recording her manifesto video, and her computer keeps failing to work, and it's so awkward and funny. I really appreciated this movie's sense of humor, and the comedy is definitely used to this movie's advantage. I'll talk about the score here because I don't really have another place to mention it, but I love the score. It's done by Daniel Pemberton, who is amazing, and the score is mostly comprised of these droning motifs and creepy-ass flute playing. I can definitely see how some people would find the score overbearing or repetitive, but I love scores like this one that stick to one theme and really build it into the movie. Like, my favorite score is The Thing, and it's mostly just these repeating bass notes that build up the tension, and it represents isolation in that movie, so it makes sense that I found it similar to this movie with how isolation is a bit of a theme here. So yeah, I just love this score, and scores like it, and Pemberton did great. This movie's sort of flashy in a way that might come across as gimmicky with how present the sound design, editing, and style is, but all these choices are ones that felt natural to the story and how they wanted to tell the story. The movie opens with a super distinct shot of Emma's ear. I knew while watching it for the first time that I would remember that shot, and it proved to be just as memorable on a second watch in theaters. Yes, I saw this twice, don't judge me. Anyways, the scene depicts the couple first meeting in a cafe. It's mostly through Charlie's perspective, but when we switch to Emma, the sound design shifts to a crackling status to show us that her right ear is deaf. Much of the movie features similarly smart choices to give us information or evoke specific emotions, without just being cool to be cool. Onto the small story details, there's a bit of a bait and switch with Charlie and Emma, where we're led to predict a shocking twist about Charlie before finding out that Emma is the culprit. Back to the opening scene is Charlie meeting Emma by taking a stealthy picture of her book she's reading and pretending he read it. And we're also shown their first kiss where he accidentally gets them trapped in the locked doors of a museum, and then he just goes in to kiss her. It's a smart way to really shock us with Emma's past. There's also several motifs. Mirrors are a big one, with Emma talking about how she doesn't understand the mirror in the book she's reading. Then they pull a cool trick where the camera whips out of them at the table to them at the table outside the mirror we didn't know we were looking through. There are also many mirror shots throughout the movie at pivotal moments, and to me this represents the conflict of these characters taking a look at themselves for the first time and being forced to confront the past and their issues. There's a motif of the fresh start, where there's 3 scenes at the start, the middle, and the end, where Emma proposes they just start over. It's cute in the first scene as a way to move on from an awkward interaction, but then in the second scene it's Emma's failed attempt to get Charlie to not confront her past, and he doesn't reciprocate. And then in the final scene it's used as a sort of refresh for both of them, and a way to move on from both of their baggage, and Charlie accepts it. I'm still at a standstill with this movie's ending because it could easily be seen as their way of ignoring their problems and reverting back to a refusal of confrontation, but it could also be viewed as a shedding of their unneeded conflict and revival of their love and the purity of this relationship. This leads me to the last scene that I want to talk about, which is the dance rehearsal scene, which takes place as the opening credits scene a bit into the movie. It's so artfully done and sets up for so much in this movie. It starts with the 2 dancing to a chosen song with a choreographed dance as the opening credits and cast pops on screen, in a way where a bunch of versions of their name pop up before settling on one. The dance ends and the choreographer says it still needs some work and urges them to do it a few more times, but Emma doesn't want to and turns on Inside Out by Jessie Ray, which is this movie's theme essentially. She explains that she doesn't want their wedding dance to feel so performative and impersonal, and she starts dancing naturally with Charlie, before the choreographer turns the song off and yells at them, and then the scene abruptly cuts. It shows off the themes and characters perfectly. Emma's nature of shutting down, but also her true peace she's found in this relationship and her refusal to let it go, Charlie's overanalyzing nature and his need to make things perfect, and then the society around them, represented by the choreographer, trying to push them down and fit them into a box, when really all they want to do is understand each other and just be people. Even down to the credits rolling by with the scattered names, representing the theme of not knowing anyone, and the isolation and coldness in society. It's just a perfect scene, and really shines on a second watch, and shows off everything that I love about this movie. I'm giving the drama a 9 out of 10. This movie has so much depth to it, and can spark so many conversations, that I feel like would be impossible to fully dive into. This movie is just so big to me. There's just too much to get into, and I don't fully feel like I did with this review, but I hope I've gotten even a little bit close to revealing my full thoughts on this movie that I genuinely really loved. And I hope I conveyed my thoughts well enough. Anyways, that's about it for this week's episode. Check out Review Ronny on Instagram and YouTube for info and archives on the show. And before I let you listeners go, it's time for Ronny's Joke of the Week. The drama, more like the llama with how much humping there is in this movie. No, camels are the ones with humps. See you next time on Ronny's Repressed Reviews.
Hey, Ronny. Ronny?
Good reviews?
Fabulous reviews.
This is Ronny. Make it good.
Just suppose Ronny could have been a
Reviewer.
It's Ronny, all right.
Ronny?
Reviews?
Fabulous reviews.
And this is the best review we got.